Japan's geographical location means it is stuck in between some of the most erratic countries in the world, flanked by China to its south, North Korea to the west, and Vladimir Putin's Russia to the north. The land of the rising sun can barely catch a break. Japan knows well enough that it is virtually impossible to single-handedly defend its territory against all of these adversaries, which is why it signed a security pact with the United States many decades ago. But for smaller and seemingly defenseless countries like Taiwan, surviving in the chaotic Indo-Pacific region is a real struggle. In recent times, Taiwan's sovereignty has increasingly come under threat from China. And although the United States does not have any diplomatic ties with Taiwan, both countries share a healthy but unofficial relationship. This suggests that the United States could at least provide military aid to Taiwan if it comes under attack. Recently, President Joe Biden was asked if he would intervene militarily should China invade Taiwan, and his response was emphatic. Yes, that's the commitment we make. However, Japan is looking to squash China's threats early on so it doesn't degenerate into a full-blown war. In an interesting twist, the land of the rising sun has offered its islands to the United States military in a bid to stop China's advancement even before it begins. While the United States and Japan have strong diplomatic ties, some have questioned whether Japan's offer is legal given the complexity of the situation. Article 6 of the Security Treaty signed by the United States and Japan stipulates that the United States military forces are allowed to use facilities and areas within Japan for security missions that will contribute to the safety of the country and the peace of the entire Far East region. So clearly, Japan has done no wrong by inviting the U.S. military to set up a base on its territory to stop China's potential invasion of Taiwan. But apparently, Japan would also play an active role in this task. In fact, the mission has been described as a joint operation between both countries, and a plan has been outlined already during a 2+2 meeting of foreign and defense ministers earlier this year. In the case that China delivers on its promise to invade Taiwan, the U.S. Marine Corps will immediately set up temporary camps across the Nansei or Ryukyu chains of islands, which consist of more than 100 individual islands that extend deep into the southwest region of Taiwan. A local media outlet, Kyodo News Agency, claims that the Japanese Self-Defense Force will provide logistical support as required by the U.S. military, ranging from fuel supplies to ammunition. This development will most likely infuriate the People's Republic of China, which looks determined to impose its will on the citizens of Taiwan at all costs. Currently, the United States has several military bases in Japan, including 31 military installations in Okinawa alone, representing 70% of the entire U.S. military installations in the country. Okinawa is about 500 kilometers north of Taiwan, and U.S. military officials view it as a focal point in the proposed joint mission between its forces and the Japanese Self-Defense Corps. Launching deterrence operations from the Okinawa prefecture against Chinese forces sailing through the Taiwan Strait would put the citizens in the region at risk. However, this mission is one that cannot be avoided if the United States and Japan are serious about stopping China in its tracks. Both countries have maintained a robust democratic and military relationship since the 1950s, and they look set to uphold that relationship going into the future, even in the face of threats from China. The Pentagon reinforced this commitment earlier this year. "We are committed to enhancing resiliency and interoperability between the U.S. and Japanese forces and deepening operational cooperation during peacetime and various regional contingencies," the Pentagon said in an official statement. The exact territory of this joint base will be tentative, as they will be required to switch locations from time to time to avoid potential attacks from Chinese forces. But at every given point, the U.S. military and Japanese forces participating in the mission will be armed with sophisticated weapons ready to engage any opposition in sight. This proposed joint operation is just one of many that the United States and Japan plan to use to curb China's threats. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida has recently embarked on a diplomatic tour of Southeast Asia and Europe to drum up support and strengthen the country's relationship with allies. Kishida believes that if China is not put in check, the world might see a similar situation to the Russia-Ukraine crisis play out in the Indo-Pacific region. Only a few weeks ago, more than 50 US and Japanese fighter jets put on a show of force in a deterrence operation off the coast of Japan. About a dozen US aircraft, including the F-35s, F-22s, and F-15s, were on parade as well. Tokyo officials say the exercise was conducted to strengthen the capability of the Japan-US alliance for effective deterrence. According to reports, Japan is currently stockpiling weapons with counterattack capabilities that would allow its military forces to strike deep into enemy territories. This signifies a paradigm shift in the country's long-standing policy of developing and purchasing self-defense and deterrence weapons only. Japan wants to be able to stand up for itself in a fight. The country has a very strong section of the population who don't want to be reliant on outside powers in order to be able to make decisions that might or may not risk its sovereignty. Cleo Pascal, an Indo-Pacific security expert, said. You might be wondering why Japan is showing plenty of interest in ensuring that Taiwan is safe. It is not hard to work out, really. Japan's Prime Minister Fumio Kishida mentioned in a recent interview that 90% of the energy used by Japan is imported through the areas around Taiwan. Furthermore, the Japanese Defense Ministry believes that the peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait is extremely important for Japan's security as well as the stability of the international community. During the US-Japan trilateral Indo-Pacific security dialogue held last year, Taiwan's president, Tsai Ing-wen, expressed worry at the extraordinary security challenges facing his country while insisting that his country will not bow to pressure. He also thanked the US and Japan for the support so far and also called for greater partnership between the three countries. The expectation is that stronger ties between the United States, Japan, and Taiwan should be enough to deter or defeat China depending on the situation. However, security analysts believe that a war situation along the Taiwan Strait will come with severe consequences to all parties involved. In fact, it is believed that any attempt by China's potential invasion of Taiwan was a more difficult and complex mission than the Allied D-Day landings in France during World War II. Around 500,000 soldiers lost their lives in the war campaign that lasted 3 months. That gives you a fair idea of how catastrophic the potential invasion of Taiwan could turn out to be. The civilian casualties would be worse considering that Taiwan has a population of 24 million with an average of 9,575 people per square kilometer. In comparison, Ukraine, which is currently being ravaged by Russia, has an average people per square kilometer ratio of 2,690. China certainly has enough firepower to take out the entire population of Taiwan within a few days or weeks. But traveling 177 kilometers through the Taiwan Strait to invade the country would be a long and dangerous journey, especially now that the United States and Japan have agreed to set up a joint base across several islands along the Taiwan Straits. The traveling Chinese vessels will literally be sitting ducks waiting to be sunk. Also, Taiwan has been preparing for a potential invasion by producing and stockpiling surface-to-ship missiles in preparation for a face-off between itself and China. Not to mention that the Japanese ruling party announced a proposal to increase its defense budget from 1% to 2% in line with other NATO members. A potential face-off in the skies could end in a massacre in favor of China, but the result would definitely be different if the United States intervened on behalf of Taiwan. Given the complex logistical hurdles that need to be surmounted, experts believe that China would need to deploy approximately 1.2 million soldiers to conquer Taiwan. That's about 60% of its entire military capacity. Not sure that will be the right thing to do for a country that hasn't fought in a land war since 1979. Furthermore, the Russian-Ukraine crisis has shown us that no opposition is too small to be written off. Regardless of the huge gap between both countries, Taiwan would fancy its chances against China. And with the United States and Japan policing the Taiwan Strait, the task at hand certainly becomes much easier. Do you think it's morally right for Japan to offer its islands to the US in a bid to stop China? Let us know what you think in the comments section down below. Be sure to check out this next video over here.